souls. Welcome to a new show on Living Naturally with Michaela Live, where we talk about all things for living a naturally healthy life. I'm your host, Michaela, naturopath, energy healer, integrative wellness specialist, and mind body connection expert. And today I'm joined by the lovely Angelica del Carmen, spiritual empowerment and personal development coach. Welcome, Angelica.
Hello.
So, today we're diving into self discovery, how to awaken and express our inner talents, gifts, and unique beauty. So many of us feel like we have something special inside of us, but we either don't know what it is or we don't know how to express it. Angelica, with her deep experience in mysticism and personal development, will help us explore ways to unlock our true potential. All right. So, Angelica, welcome back to another show. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself for those who are just tuning in for the first time and the work that you do that's related to the topic that we're going to be talking today?
Well, first of all, thank you once again for having me back. So, what do? I do a little bit of everything, mostly everything that is based on spirituality, personal development, and women's empowerment. The truth of the matter is, my belief is we're all energy, we're all spirit. It's finding ways to reconnect that into a very practical way of being in our everyday life. That's basically what I do. I help women. Also, I help men. I lead women's circles. I do all the women's empowerment, and I help women feel alive and spiritual and sexy once again. So I'm a combo.
Yes, yes. You're like me. You're a hybrid, different type of hybrid, but a hybrid nonetheless. Yes,
Oh, yes.
absolutely. And I feel like and that kind of plays really well into what we're going to be talking about today. And it's like recognizing our unique gifts and talents and being able to express them. Because I do believe that many people have multiple gifts and talents and they just don't realize it. So that's part of where this conversation is going to go today. And you, like me, have learned to embrace those multitude of gifts and use them all in everything that you do. And I think that is a really big discussion there because I think because I'm guilty of it too. When I was first starting out, is that I used part of me, but not all of me, because I used the part that I thought people wanted or needed to see. So I wasn't using all of me. So I felt like, in a way, I wasn't truly authentic. Although I was real,
Hmm.
I wasn't truly authentic because I didn't embrace all of me and all of my gifts and bring all of them to the table. So, yeah, so absolutely. So, which brings us to our first point of the day, which is recognizing unique gifts and talents. We all have them. We all have them. Many people, though, struggle to recognize their own gifts. Sometimes they're so natural that we overlook them. I personally feel that our soul's blueprint holds clues to our innate abilities. So, do you agree with that?
Of course. And I love what you just said because they're so easy to us. We don't recognize them.
Yeah.
Most of the gifts that we have, they're so very us that we don't recognize when we're expressing something some other people don't. And I do agree, it does come in like in our blueprint. It's just a part of who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I've found that, even in my own journey from the tech industry to holistic healing, that I had skills like problem solving that actually translated into helping people heal. So what I was talking about before, it's when I was only using part of me, not bringing all of me to the table. That's part of what I was talking about because I did originally come from a tech field and I am now more open about that. And when I was first starting, when I was helping people, it's like I was using all of my intuitive skills, and that's what I was bringing to the table. And that's what I would tell people about, where my experience was in that. And I would leave the tech part out because I felt like it wasn't relevant. But as I became as I started to embrace myself more and uncover my own uniqueness, I recognized that that actually is part of what I do, and it actually is relevant in what I do now, because that same problem solving skills that I use for database design and breaking down complex problems, I use that now in the healing realm in pretty much the same way. Except I'm not working on computer systems anymore. I'm working on body systems, but I'm still breaking down complex problems and figuring out ways forward to help a person heal. So being able to bring that uniqueness from then into what I do now actually helped me become more authentic as a healer. And I think that so many people, as you said, it's such a part of who we are that we don't recognize it as a talent or a gift. Because even before the tech industry, I was always a problem solver. I was always figuring out how to make this work or how to do this or how to do that. It was something that was innate in what I did naturally that eventually manifested itself. So let's talk a little bit about that from the spiritual aspect. Um, have you found that people often dismiss the natural talents because they seem like they're too easy? Or that, oh, it's not really a talent, it's just something I do. They kind of dismiss it. Have you found that to be true in what you in your work as well?
Yeah, and it's funny with what you just shared because it goes right along with this. So my experience is when I was younger. So our unique gifts and our talents and all of our things come within us, right? We don't even know it. They're just super easy to us. So an example is when I was in high school, we finally had to do like that first research paper. And I remember it was something like X amount of words equal like 7 pages. I don't remember why. I ended up doing it on psychology, which I absolutely loved. And I turned in like a 25-page paper and it just came out. And then as you look forward in life, then I went into college and it was kind of like I remember having a friend, she would tell me things, I would like hold space for her. I didn't know I was holding space for her. I was just listening to my friend and giving her my advice. Years later, she comes to me and she goes, "You're the best person I ever talked to." And I was like, I was just being me. With what you're asking now, so many of us dismiss all those things. We don't recognize those are gifts that we have. And from the spirituality side, many of us are very innate healers. We have a healing potential to help somebody, even if it's just by listening. It's not just the Reiki and the hands-on and the this and the that. No, it's just giving yourself up to somebody and allowing them to like literally confide in you. How many of us dismiss as simple as that because it's too easy? Like you just said,
Yeah,
it's like I was just there listening. And
yeah,
it's so funny to see that because it is repetitively with clients, with people, with friends, with anybody we dismiss them so because we were taught that life has to be hard. If you have a talent, it's because you learned the skill, you did it, you applied yourself, and you're the best at it.
yeah,
Who's
yeah.
who's
I
guiding
also,
that?
yeah. It's funny you talk about childhood as well, because I feel that um, our childhood interests are can actually be clues to our unique gifts and our deeper calling. It's
Mhm.
like, because when we're children, for the most part, when we're children, we're uninhibited, I feel, and we are encouraged to explore. And so we will do this and we will do that. And usually the things that we find ourselves gravitating towards are things that we're really interested in, usually is a very big clue as to what we're going to be naturally good at, what our natural talents are going to be. So yeah. And so with that being said, I'd like to encourage the viewers and the listeners to reflect on your childhood passions or moments that you felt in the flow. And that's another key too. I feel like when we're trying to discover what our passions are, is what feels in the flow. Not things that are resistant, but what feels good, what feels in the flow for you. That's usually a very telltale sign of something that is unique to you, your gift, your talent that you can use for the greater good, which we're going to talk a little bit about that later, because one of the discussions I like to have is about how we should be using our talents not just for our own self-fulfillment, but to help others. So, yeah, which takes us to the next point, which is spiritual and embodiment practices for self-discovery. I think is very important for us when we are trying to embrace our natural gifts and talents. Sometimes it's hard for us to recognize what those gifts are. We can have, this great goal of trying to determine what our gifts are. Because there are all kinds of like tests and stuff out there that you can take to, discover your gifts. And honestly, you don't have to take a test. Really. It's like if you would learn to look within, you can discover your own gifts and talents without having to take all those tests. Yeah, sometimes if you don't know how to look within, the test can help you, but it's just that it's a test and it's like, very generic and all that kind of stuff. And even if someone has the same gift as you, the way you deliver your gift is going to be totally different. The way you express your gift is going to be totally different from someone else who expresses that same gift. So it's very important for you to understand yourself. And once we start recognizing our gifts, though, how do we bring that forward? I know from the work that I do, because I'm always talking about the mind body connection, body plays a huge part in accessing that intuition, because I feel like our bodies talk to us, and our bodies will tell us intuitively what is deep inside. But you have to learn to listen to that body, listen to your body. So, what are some things that you would suggest to someone to help them connect with their inner wisdom?
Hmm. I think we always talk about this, and it's funny because it happened to me this week. Even if we always talk about it, it's that meditate, meditate,
Yes.
calming down the mind. I think from the truest part of me, yes, we all have unique gifts. We all have all of these things, but then we all have a gazillion thoughts on top of it. And then we have a gazillion bunch of judgments. If we meditate, if we just give ourselves the space to
Yeah.
feel and even connect with the body, like you're just saying, just meditate could be just take a few deep breaths in and out, and that's it. You don't have to go to the Himalayas, you don't have to sit crisscross under a tree. Beautiful, but not necessary. But I think meditation and breath work brings such a calm peace and kind of allows you to remove all those obstacles that are in the way of showing you your greatness and showing you your unique gifts and being able to express that. And just movement and dance. It doesn't even have to be official breath work. Get up and dance. If we're talking about empowerment, men or women, do sensual movements. It is a matter of moving the body because what do we do when we're kids? We were talking about kids a little while ago.
Mm.
When we were children, we were constantly moving
Yeah.
because something inside of us told us that there was like something in our body that needed shifting. That something was energy. All
Yeah.
of these blocks are what stop us from actually using, expressing, and discovering more and more of our unique gifts. I believe we have tons of them.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. For me, I found that somatic work and even energy healing have been very profound tools for self-discovery, because as you said, those blocks, so sometimes we have to get past those blocks to really see what's going on. And I feel like um energy, you were talking about the energy and the movement. When we were children, we innately moved because the energy needed to shift. I feel like when that energy gets stuck in the body, that's what creates these blocks, and those blocks prevent us from accessing our inner wisdom that is going to allow our intuition to tell us the things that we're looking for and the things that we need to know. So from my standpoint, you already said movement. I love movement. Movement's great. I love like yoga and somatic movement. There is something to that because the poses opens up particular areas where energies get stuck. So that's the science behind it. It's more than just, oh, I just need to exercise and get in the flow. Those particular poses actually opens the pathways in the body that allows that energy to move instead of becoming blocked and stagnant, which opens up your ability to be able to access what's inside of you and movement, and you already mentioned breath work, but even like journaling, I find can also help you get unstuck and unlock hidden gifts, um, particularly because journaling is a way to release emotions in a way other than talking about it. And I keep talking about emotions because I find that emotional energy is one of the big energies that gets stuck in our bodies that can block us. Emotional energies, trauma energies, that kind of thing. So anything that you can do to help release that stuckness and unblock it can help you to be able to, explore more on your road to self discovery. So, one of the things I like to suggest is, particularly, with the journaling is, you know, a practical exercise of, take 5 minutes a day to sit in silence and then ask yourself, what wants to come forward in my life right now? You can do that with the breath work. You can do that with the meditation. You can write it down in your journal and see what comes up for you. If you start asking the questions, the answers will start to come. It's not going to get there if you just sit there and do nothing. So you got to put it into action. I know, right? So, so movement is an action. So you have to put it into action. But, you don't have to do anything big to do that. You can start simply small with 5 minutes a day. Okay,
Right,
what wants to come forward today?
right. And if I can add something to that, sometimes when we're feeling stuck or we're whatever mood we're in, whatever emotion's going on inside us, and we're like, okay, I'm gonna sit and journal. And you sit there and you stare at the damn blank page. One of the good things that has helped me, start doodling.
Hmm.
If you don't draw, start making lines and patterns and something that'll get you out of that thinking mode and block mode. I don't know what to write mode. And all of a sudden it'll just start flowing and then you start writing.
Yeah,
Because that usually happens. And I have people are like, I've tried journaling, but nothing will come out. And it's like, okay, how do we block that? How do we not block that? How do we break that block? And that is one of the things. And that's exactly what we did as children.
yeah,
We doodled.
yeah. Or go color. I'm
Yes.
a big fan of the adult coloring books that are popular right now. I feel like those are really good for just getting into the flow and releasing stuck energies and getting out of, as one of me and Abigail talk about, the monkey mind.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what I call it too. I'm in my monkey head. Yep.
Get out of the monkey mind. I personally I personally color every day. I have, physical coloring books. I have digital coloring books. One of my favorite things is, and I'm in no way associated with this. Zen Color. I love Zen Color. I have it on my iPad, and I like to just like add colors to the picture. It's like little things like that. It really kind of just lets you be like this, gets you in the flow where you're not overthinking everything. And when you find that you're not overthinking everything, you release that resistance that allows the ideas and the positive energy and the intuition to come forward and present itself to you. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I just find that's another great way to just release that stuckness. I also like to just put on some music and just kind of dance around. You've
Yep.
mentioned dance. I love that. I'm a huge 80s girl. I love putting on 80s disco music. Just and just
You,
dance around.
you know what's something that's funny for me? I release a lot, and it's something that you can explain, and we can get into it later. It's very ancestral. When I listen to music that has like that African drum,
Mm,
that's
okay.
what I dance to. You have no idea how much I dance and I release to that. And you don't have to be thinking of anything. You're moving your body, you're doing breath work, you're doing all these things,
Yeah.
you're doing movement, but it's that rhythm. So it's for you, it's the 80s music. For me, it could be any kind of music, like
Yeah.
salsa merengue, this, that, but that tribal drumming,
Yeah.
that gets me off. Like
Yeah.
that's my thing right there.
Well, I do listen to all kinds of music, and different music affects me different ways. And so,
Hmm.
depending on my mood, it may change. I also love listening to classical music. There are particular composers that I like listening to because it really releases the stuckness in my brain, because there's such a mathematical precision to it that
Hmm.
it actually appeals to my analytical side. And sometimes I personally need to balance my analytical side and my intuitive
Yes.
side. So depending on where I need to balance, it will make a difference on what music is going to be best for me at that time. And I generally just will intuitively pick whatever it is that I need for the day. But that's what we're talking about. Once you start learning to look within and to listen and become aware, you'll know these things and you will innately pick what you need, just like you were when you were children. You will innately pick what you need at that particular time, because what's good at that time may not be good at another time. Like, I love meditation, but sometimes meditation isn't good, because sometimes there's that pent up energy that needs to come out. And so sitting still is not going to allow that. So that will actually work against you.
Hmm.
So it's very important to know yourself, to know what you need. So,
Hmm.
yeah, at least that's my 2 cents.
I agreed with those 2 cents. That's why we're always on the show.
I know. Everybody always just says meditate, meditate, meditate. Yes,
Yes.
meditation is great, and I always suggest meditation in most instances. Meditation is, I feel like, it can't do you any harm. Okay. But sometimes, some energies, you need to do something else other than meditate. Sometimes you need to, let out the pent up before you can meditate. So,
I'll be right back. Let me go take care of that right now.
and that's okay, because our energies are constantly shifting.
Hmm.
And what we need today may not be what we need tomorrow. What we need right now may not be what we need an hour from now or 2 hours from now. But when you have all these different tools that you can use to help move yourself forward, then you can find some benefit, some tool that you can use, and you'll innately know what you need to do. So,
Right.
all right. So, which brings us to the next point, which is overcoming the blocks and fears that suppress our inner expression. We've already talked about that. It's like the energies, it gets stuck in our bodies, and we need to figure out a way, oftentimes, to release that blockage, because when we're blocked, it keeps us from expressing ourselves and expressing our gifts, whether it's fear of judgment or self-doubt, or even past conditioning. Not all of us have had like great childhood. Sometimes things that we've learned in childhood or in society can also keep us stuck and blocked as well.
Right.
um I know for myself, since and I'm speaking from personal experience here. My childhood was not all that great. Okay. And in the time frame that I also grew up in, I mentioned how I was in the tech field. Even when I was in the tech field as a young adult, at that time there were very, very few women in that field at all. And it was absolutely a male dominated field. And so those females that were in that field often were, pushed down, suppressed, or whatever. And as a child, you were always taught that girls weren't supposed to be smart.
Hmm.
So many times, no one ever really knew how smart I was, or
Hmm.
and that's not being arrogant. I'm just this. It's a matter of fact. I've been tested and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a matter of fact. But I would never let on what I actually knew. But that was part of my conditioning, and it took so long for me to be able to break that cycle, break that mold, break out of that box that other people had put me in. And yet some of it was fear of judgment. It's like, oh, smart girls are, or oh, you're trying to do a man's job. So you know or the
Okay.
self-doubt, can I really do this?
Right.
Do I know as much as I think I do? Will I be able to compete with the others? All those things can block you from expressing your gifts. So from a spiritual aspect, what do you think are some of the biggest reasons that people hold back?
Well, I think you just nailed kind of all of them in a very real world techie way. Because all of us, from a spiritual point of view, yes, we have all these gifts. Yes, we come like let's even go a little bit further back. I mentioned ancestors before. We sometimes have gifts that have been passed down through generations.
Hmm.
We can't explain why we know what we know. We can't explain who really, like in your case, who was so smart and who that you got that gift from them.
Yeah.
But then spiritually, as a spiritual being, and when we're children, we express all of it, right?
Yeah.
The people that are around us that don't know, and it's not even, in a harmful way they mean it, but because they don't understand the gifts, they shut us down. For example, me spiritually, I was a very awakened spiritual kid. I
Hmm.
really was. I saw things, I did things, I intuitively had things, I dreamed things. I have older cousins telling me now, God, I remember when you were little, you would tell me blah, 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 and like it scared the crap out of me, blah, blah, blah. Like she would laugh. But the thing is, I wasn't supposed to talk about it. So I start shutting down as I grew up until I decided to awaken that spiritual part of me again and be okay with that gift. And I think a lot of us go through that. What a lot of us probably did go through is every child draws and paints. But
Hmm.
at some point or another, we were told by society or by art history or by an art teacher or by a mean older cousin that painting is horrible.
Hmm.
And then you start bringing it down. But what if that was your outlet? What if you were just getting used to painting again?
Yeah.
So we base what you just said, all the shoulds, we get all these things from everybody, we get bombarded, and then we start shutting ourselves down. Oh, wow, maybe I am not that good, or maybe I really shouldn't say this, or they don't understand and they think I'm crazy, so I just won't say anything. And you start shutting down your gifts, whether it's spirituality, whether it's intuition, whether it's art, whether it's smart, whether it's good with numbers, or whatever it is, for different conditioning reasons, we all start labeling ourselves. And then it gets to a point that we're like, am I being judged? Am I
Yeah.
really good enough?
Yeah.
What are they going to say? I don't want them to think, I don't want to lose my friends. That sense of belonging is
Yeah.
so crucial to every human being. It happens, unfortunately, or it did happen. And that's kind of why we're talking about this now, to stop it from happening more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So all of that comes under the realm of what we like to call in the energetic realm of limiting beliefs.
Right.
And the other part of that is what we call ancestral conditioning
Hmm.
and maybe even karmic patterns. Okay.
Hmm.
And I know those are some fancy words. Those of you who are listening, you're probably it's like, what? But just like our eye color or other things can get passed along in our DNA, As Angelica said, sometimes knowledge can get passed along in our DNA. Energies get passed along in our DNA. And the work that I do on the energetic side of things, there are often things that people are carrying around that did not originate with them. It originated with an ancestor. In layman's terms, some people might call it generational trauma,
Hmm.
but it gets passed along, and it's basically this conditioning that becomes part of the ancestor, and then they pass it down to the next one, that gets passed down to the next one, that gets passed down to the next one. And then by the time it gets to you, it's been passed down so much, it's that much bigger. But
Right.
it didn't even start with you. But since it got passed along and it's not yours, it still affects how you view things and how you see things and how you will respond to things. But the good news is that since it's not yours, you can break it. You just have to want to, and you have to do the work. I often, in the work that I do, often see this, showing up as, unresolved emotions and things of like that. Again, we're talking about energy, emotions or energies, whether you believe in energy or not, or you think it's woo woo, it's the science. Emotions are energy, and they can get stuck in the body. And
Hmm.
I like to describe it when I'm trying to explain this to clients that just doesn't get it, because I tend to get a lot of clients that are very analytical. So I think that's kind of where my place is in this world, is to help the people that are very analytical to understand the intuitive and spiritual side of things too a little bit. I often like to describe it as if we look at ourselves as kind of like a house with a circuit breaker in the house. It's like if something trips that circuit, everything on that circuit just kind of goes off and starts acting wonky. So sometimes those trapped emotional energies, those trapped trauma energies will trip that breaker, or it will trip that circuit. And so everything else is on the other end of that circuit
Hmm.
doesn't work properly, or it just totally stops working. That's how that blocked energy is in our bodies. It'll get blocked somewhere, then everything else on the other end of that is not getting the energy it needs to do what it's supposed to. And so when you start thinking about it in the mind body side of things, that starts why certain organs are not behaving the way that they're supposed to. And when those organs aren't behaving the way they're supposed to, that leads to symptomology. And then you have a collection of symptoms, which leads to disease. So that's how I try to help people understand all of this connectivity there, because disease is a collection of symptoms. Symptoms are caused by imbalances. The imbalances are generally caused by some sort of blocked energy, emotional energy, trauma energy, or something along that lines. So if you can adjust on the back end of things, eventually that ripple will go, down the line. So that's how I try to help people understand it. So I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone, but that's how I help people understand it. So
Yeah. No, and I think the analogy is great because yeah, it's something that triggered it and then everything else doesn't work. So what triggered it? Like, there you go. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And sometimes if the circuit's blown, you have to replace it, right? So if you think about it as limiting beliefs, right? That limiting belief blew that entire circuit. So
Right.
now all of this is all messed up.
Right.
Sometimes you have to get rid of that limiting belief, replace it with an empowering belief in order to turn that circuit back on and have everything start working the way it's supposed to.
Right. Right. And it's funny because from the spiritual side, I do the same thing, but in a spiritual, energetic way. So let's say, for example, it's an ancestor who had the limiting belief because of whatever. We're talking
Mhm.
about talents. So let's say they had the talent of such and such thing, and then whatever happened to them. Then they got the limiting belief of, well, I can't follow my talent. I have to follow something more practical, whatever it is. And they change their belief and then they raise their children for that new belief. So we don't know where that came from. But from the spiritual work, like ancestral work, let's say a family constellation or energetic family work or systems, We can literally find the ancestor and be like, hey, I honor you. I'm so informal. Hey, I honor you. I see what you went through, but that was your life. That
Yeah,
was your lesson. I take all the good from it. I take the good from the lesson, but that limiting belief is not mine anymore. That was never mine with. I return it to you with love and peace.
yeah,
Energetically, that shifts everything as well. It's a matter of finding and really looking, okay, like you said, is this limiting belief mine? And if not, or if it is, how do I reframe it? Because our
right,
mind still needs work, but
right.
we can work it all from the energetic level.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I work a lot with limiting beliefs on the energetic side of things. I mean, I like combining things, but
Hmm.
far um, far more profound when I'm dealing with limiting beliefs is using energetic tools, and so I use stuff like emotion code, body code, and belief code, particularly when I'm dealing with limiting beliefs because they are these energies that are stuck in your body. Belief code in particular is one of those ones that helps deal with deeply held beliefs that are often will come from early childhood or things that were taught to us by our parents or ancestors or by society that becomes part of, and I'm going to use a computer term here, becomes part of our operating system.
Yeah,
And sometimes we need to change the system, as you talked about. Sometimes we need to
yeah,
change the system, and you need to have new programming. And there are a lot of really good tools out there to change that programming. You mentioned family constellation. Now, I don't do that one, but that was one of the ones that when you mentioned that one, it's like, oh yeah, it's like I really was very intrigued by that
hmm
one. I remember
hmm
watching the show on Netflix, and it's like, oh wow, this is like, and it really gets into like, where did that come from the ancestors? It wasn't yours, but it affects you all the same. Now the way that it
yeah,
shows up for you might be different than
right.
the way it showed up for the ancestor or even someone else down the line that's like your cousin or whatever that may have also received that, but it wasn't yours, but it affects you all the same. So
Oh yeah,
sometimes you got to deal with your stuff, but sometimes you have to deal with stuff that wasn't even yours to begin with.
right, right. And not to give them props or anything, but a lot of people may have already seen that movie Disney, Coco. Wait,
Mm.
Coco?
Yeah, Coco. Yeah,
And it's literally about that. So the grandfather was a musician, loved music, and because he supposedly deserted the wife, the belief of the family became you cannot be a singer, you cannot be a guitar player, whatever
yeah,
he was, a musician.
yeah,
And that's what the whole movie was about. The limiting belief, everything came from the ancestor. Nobody really knew why until they finally figured out, oh, he died. He didn't abandon her. He got
yeah,
murdered. Like, oh, okay. And it's when we realize in our mind, that's the power of our mind. When our mind gets a new reframe that actually makes sense, you can let go of so many things and heal so many things and have changes like that, that it's
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, yeah. When you started talking about that, I had this funny story that popped into my head. Have you ever heard the story about the the lady? Whenever she would make a ham for her family, she would cut the end off. Because
Yep.
that was the way
Why do
her
you cook it
mother
that way?
taught her to do it, and so it's like she
Right.
thought that's what you're supposed to do, and somebody finally asked her, "Why do you cut the end off?" She's like, "I don't know, that's what my mother told me to do." And then the mother's like, "Well, I did it that way because that's what my mother did." And then you found out that the mother started doing that because her pot was too small, so she would always cut the
Yep.
end off to make it fit in the pot.
Yep. See? And that's the thing. And then we get stuck in our head that if you didn't do that and you didn't cut the end off,
Yeah.
didn't come out good. I
Yep.
messed up the recipe. I should have. And there comes the should haves. I should have done it like that.
Yep. Yep.
We're funny humans. We
All
really
right.
are.
So, we've been talking about all of this. So, let's talk a little bit about ways that we can cultivate and express our gifts. We go through all of this and it's like, okay, we figured out sort of what our gift is. Sort of.
Sort of.
And honestly, it can be a lifelong discovery, because you might find a piece of it, and then, but then there's still something else to it, or it may change and morph as you go through life, and you have other having to interact with other people, so it could
Mhm.
actually change as well. So let's talk a little bit about cultivating and expressing our gifts. So once we've identified our gifts and we've worked through some blocks, how can we actively bring them into our daily lives? So I am going to let Angelica take point on this one. So what are some ways that you would suggest to help people bring their gifts into their daily lives? We've had part of this conversation before about purpose and passion.
Right,
So this is
right.
part of that purpose and passion discussion. So
Well,
I'm going to
everything's
let you
purpose and
take
passion.
lead on this one.
Well, let's do this. So, spirituality wise, place an intention in the morning. Place the intention and ask the universe, whatever, how and where can I use my gifts today? And that's it. Don't answer it. Just let the day happen. And little by little, you start noticing that you use this, or you thought of this, or you did that. So it's just placing the intention of how and where may I use my gifts today. It doesn't even need to be which gift, just gifts. The other one is more analytical. I think the other one is more of when something comes up, think outside the box. And the reason I say that is because we tend to do what society does. We tend to do what we have done. We're habitual, right? We tend
Mhm.
to do the same thing. But if we start thinking outside the box, even for the simplest thing, even how to cook the dinner, how to do your hair that day, how to, whatever, make the bed, think outside the box. Why? Because that's igniting your creativity. And our creativity is very connected to our intuition. And our intuition is what gives us our gifts and our talents. So it's a little practice because our gifts, whatever they are, it's just like a muscle. If we don't use them, we don't make them stronger.
Yeah.
And the more we use them, the better they are. Like people who draw. I cannot draw a circle to be a circle for the life of me. But give me a computer and I'm a self-taught graphic designer. I figured out how to teach myself to be a graphic designer when it started, a few years ago, X amount of years ago. But that's the thing. And it's like the people who draw. If you don't draw every day, when you go get a pencil, according to them, they're going to suck, right? The first few ones. But the more you practice, the more you draw, the more into the habit you get. So every day, maybe schedule 5, 10 minutes a day. Schedule time for your creativity, schedule time for your gifts. And if you
Yeah.
don't know what it is, and you have a dog, schedule time to play with the dog. Don't walk the dog, play. It's going back to childhood. It's going back to what do I want to do? What you said before, just be in the flow. If you want to play basketball, go shoot some hoops. I mean, I don't know. For me, it's all of those little things, like those little micro things that we can do throughout the day that'll bring us back into like these practical ways. If you love to write, sit and write for 5 minutes. I used to write poems all the time. Have I done it lately? No. I might need more than 5 minutes, but it allows the space now to, okay, let's see what flows. And I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So those would be the things I do.
Yeah, yeah, and I've really loved the idea too of the micro movement as well. It's like taking small steps rather than waiting for the perfect time to do
Right.
something big. I often will tell my clients, something's better than nothing, and it's like,
Yeah.
and a step is a step, no matter how small, so, take those baby steps. You don't have to like take one giant leap. You can take like little teeny tiny steps, like you said, it's like becomes part of an everyday, little thing. Um, you know, from a personal perspective, like when I was trying to finish my book. It's like
Hmm.
I sat on it and I sat on it and I sat on it. It's like I had the outline, I had everything ready to go, and I just could not just sit down and do it. No matter what I did, it just seemed like it was just so daunting. I know I wanted to do it, but it was just such a huge undertaking, such a daunting, until I finally just like, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to do like a chapter a day. If I can't do a chapter a day, I'm going to do a few paragraphs in that chapter a day.
Right.
And so I just started doing a little bit of it at a time until it was finally done. It took me longer than I had anticipated, but I got it done. But
Right.
it became I had to I had to put it in a way where it became part of what I did every day. So
Right.
I decided I'm going to do this. And so I did a little bit of it each day, and it became part of my routine to just,
Right.
okay, I'm going to sit there and I am going to do, this piece of the outline for this chapter.
Right.
Then the next
Right.
day, I'm going to do this piece of the outline for this chapter until I just did it because I never would have done it if I had sat down and tried to do the whole thing all at once. But breaking it down and becoming part of my daily routine to do a little bit at a time, then I was able to accomplish it. So I think that in that way, that can also help other people to be able to express their gifts as well. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like my this book was something that I needed to do because it was part of what I had to offer, whether anybody else wanted it or not. I felt like that was something I needed to do. So I found a way to make it happen. And
Okay.
that's the
Good.
way that I'm expressing my gift.
Right.
So one of the ways anyway. So anyway, just like this show, it's like, again, it's like I sat on it and I sat on it. I knew I wanted to do this show. I knew there was something that needed to come out in this show. And it's like I had this idea and I just sat on it and I sat on it until somebody just said, just do it.
Okay. Right. Right.
Sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to just make up your mind to just do it. And what's the old saying about how do you eat an elephant? One spoon at a time, one bite at a time, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
One bite at a time, one
Mm-hmm.
tiny step at a time. It doesn't have to be big. Just
Right.
follow the breadcrumbs.
Yes. I love that. Yes. And actually, if I can add something to my piece, we talked about it in the beginning that we get our gifts shut down, right, for whatever reason. And one of the ways that I have found to be able to help others and help myself, and now that we're talking about the show, it's like it's telling me to start my other podcast, which you know about. It's using our voice. And
Yeah,
here's the thing, get the phone, get your recorder, and vent. Why? One, because it moves the energy. Two, it gets all of those thoughts and emotions and crap, quite literally, out. And three, we're learning to express ourselves. And
hmm,
that is what happens with gifts and talents. We stop expressing them. And one of the things we've never stopped doing, the great majority of us, is talking.
yeah,
But we have more inside conversations in our head than we probably have with other people. So if you just grab the phone and put it also as a micro thing of 5 minutes and just grab your phone and record yourself and vent, sing something that expresses your vocal, something that literally expresses yourself, it's you're allowing yourself that permission to allow other things to come through, which you might not even be aware of. So,
yeah,
like you said, one thing in the breaker blows and it breaks away so many things. Fixing little things and just addressing little things starts giving that energy back.
yeah. No, I love that. I love that because I think so many of us have had our voices suppressed for so
Yeah.
long, whether it's self-suppression or suppressed by others. We've had our voices suppressed for so long, and our voices are part of how we express ourselves. So yeah, so I love that, that you mentioned that. So just talking in some way can help shift the mind and that energy of expression. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. I often have to work on my throat chakra a lot because my voice was suppressed for so long, particularly, as a child. And even in the tech field, when I was in the tech field, I was shut down so much that it took a while for me to be able to express myself, which is really interesting because as a younger adult, I used to sing and I
Oh,
have not really and I'm not really sang since then. When I was in college, I used to sing all the time. I was in like, did backups for bands and stuff. I lived in Austin, it was like music city capital, it's like
Uh-huh.
I did all kinds of stuff. I used to sing and dance and everything. And yeah, and once I was in corporate world, that all changed. So it
Mm-hmm.
took a while for me to come out of that to be able to express myself again. So I love that you brought that forward. So yeah, go sing. I actually took your advice before when I was telling you that sometimes when I get ready to do the show, my voice starts to get a stitch, and you're like, okay, you know what? You should just start singing before you do the show, and it's like, and I've actually started doing it. I've started singing
Good.
to myself before I do the show to kind of loosen up my voice to be able to, get myself in the mode to be able to express what it is that I need to come out for that particular show. So
Very
take that
nice.
advice. Those of you who are listening, take that advice, and don't worry about what it sounds like. It's not about what it sounds like. It is the
Exactly.
act itself of expression.
Exactly.
So, all right. So let's talk now. We're going to start wrapping this all up. And this is about living a soul lit life. We've talked about this one before. And, we talked about the
Mm-hmm.
purpose and the passion and everything. And part of having the gifts, at the end of the day, our talents and our gifts are meant to be expressed. Okay. They're not just for personal fulfillment, but it's part of our life's purpose. And our life's purpose often involves other people. There is a saying that our purpose is not what happens when we do what we do, but what happens in others when we do what we do. Okay, so our talents and our gifts are meant to be expressed, not just for us, but part of our life's purpose, whatever that purpose is. So again, I'm going to let Angelica take the lead on this one. So I'm going to ask her the big question: how does alignment feel different from chasing external validation?
Oh, that's easy. It's horrible. It's horrible when you don't. You feel horrible. Okay. So oh, that was easy. I was like, oh my God, what is she gonna ask? Okay. So we're in alignment with what we do and with our purpose and with everything. Like you said before, we're in the flow, we're in the zone. We just naturally feel happy doing it. It's not work, it's not a struggle. We're not forcing it. When we're not in alignment, it's all those opposite things. It feels horrible. You feel heavy, you feel dread. I don't want to do this, I don't want to be there. And the whole thing is, life shouldn't feel that way.
Right.
There goes my voice. Life shouldn't go that way. Life shouldn't feel that way. It's a matter of getting like talking about the unique gifts and stuff. It's a matter of expressing it for you, knowing that you're having fun and it's easy for you. You're in alignment when you see other people see your stuff, whatever it is, and they're like, oh my God, that somehow resonates with me, or oh wow, that advice you gave me the last time helped, or when we're authentically ourselves, we're aligned. And
Yeah.
it feels expansive. It feels great. When we're not, it's sadly, many of us know what it feels to not be in alignment. How about
Yeah.
that?
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found that when I stopped trying to prove myself, as I felt like for so long, it's like, okay, my talent is in this, and I have to do this and I have to do that, and I have to live up to the expectation, or I have to break the expectation because they expect me to fail. So I have to prove that I'm not going to fail. So
Right,
so
right.
so I found that when I stopped trying to prove myself and just focus on being authentically me and being in service, if you will, uh, that everything flowed so much easier. and
Hmm.
and we talk about being in the flow or not in the flow, and for some people that can seem a little woo woo, but if you felt in the flow, you would know it. And there's nothing woo woo about it. Sometimes in life you feel like everything's against you. That's definitely not in the flow. That's some resistance that is happening. Okay. But when you are of the mindset that everything's just kind of going along, even when the not stellar stuff is happening, if you're in the right mindset, that doesn't even bother you quite so much anymore. That kind of puts you in the flow and you feel so much better
Right.
when you're in that right flow, if you will. So so at least that's the way I feel about it. So
Yeah.
and when you know who you are and you're authentic and you're embracing that, I think it helps you be in the flow that much more, because then all the other external validation stuff doesn't really matter much to you anymore. It's like, oh, okay, well, okay. So for instance, I used to get really upset when people would like steal my stuff and take credit for it.
Hmm.
or
Remember
they
that
or they
conversation.
would copy me and everybody starts going, oh, they're so great. And it's like, okay, well, they got it from me, or I did it first, but okay. So that used to bother me. Okay. So that was me not in the flow. Now it's just kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm on to something.
Yeah.
Okay, but it still irritates me sometimes. But it's a process. Everything's a process. It's not going to come easy. It's not. You're not going to like all of a sudden, turn on the switch and everything's the way it's supposed to be. It's just not. Okay, I'm not going to tell you that that it's going to be easy. Sometimes it takes a little bit, and that's okay. But when you recognize that it is going to take a little bit, and you start taking those baby steps to get to where you want to be, inevitably you're going to feel better about that, because you will recognize I'm making progress. And knowing that you're making progress will make all the difference for you. And then when you find that you're going to start freely expressing yourself, that's really going to make a big difference for you.
Right. And if I can add something, talking about the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and the whole thing, we are so talented, each and every one of us. And yet, somewhere along the line, we bought a lie. We're not even going to call it a belief, we're going to call it a lie that how could you be talented in so many different areas? That
Yeah,
it can't be. So, as you're discovering yourself, as you're noticing all these different things, or maybe you already have discovered that you're talented in so many different things, it's okay to be talented in all those things. You don't have to hide all those things from people because people will be like, oh, you're talented in this, 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 and this. Yeah, uh-huh, right, whatever. And then you start feeling judged for
hmm,
acknowledging all the talents you do have. So it's not just having talents, it's how many you do have and not caring, not what you're saying, not let it bother you. It's kind of like, this is who I am, period, and enjoy it.
yeah,
Enjoy it for you. And as a side effect, the people around you will enjoy you as well. You help the world by being happy.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree with that. I was one of those people too that I felt judged because I could do so many things.
Right.
And yeah, there were people who would, yeah, right, kind of thing. and that's and I would challenge people that come into contact with people like that to recognize that's about them, not about you.
Right.
That's their perception. And you know what? You can't change somebody else's perception. Only thing you can change is you and your reaction to their perception. And if you just like, okay, if you recognize it's about them and not about you, you release that burden of feeling like you're being judged by other people. I think I mentioned this before. I have been reading Mel Robbins' Let Them Theory book. I love that book. Let them. It's like they're going to judge you. Yeah, let them. Let them
Hmm.
judge you. That's about them, not about you.
Right.
So, there you go. So, here's my question for the audience. If you could express your gifts without fear or self doubt, what would that look like? What would that look like? Think about that. All right. So we have come to the end of our show here. We have talked about recognizing our unique gifts and talents. We've talked about practices for self discovery. We've talked about overcoming blocks and fears that suppress our inner expression. We've talked about how to cultivate and express our gifts. And we've even talked about aligning with our purpose and passion and living a soul led life. So, how are you going to live your life? How are you going to put that into practice and to discover your gifts and be able to express them? That's what I'd like for you to take away from today's show. What is it that you can do? What is your baby step that you can start now to get to what it is that you're trying to accomplish with your life? We all have gifts. Everyone. Everyone has a gift. Question is, what is yours? And how are you going to use it? So, Angelica, do you have some final words that you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
I think to piggyback on what you just said, yes. If you don't know what your gifts are, then use curiosity and explore. Explore what your gifts could be. Try something new. Maybe you're good at it. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're not. Whatever. You have so many gifts that you're probably unaware of. Don't think you don't have any. Explore. Have fun with it. And I think we just all need to stop adulting so much and kind of go back to our inner childhood and be like, okay, what can I do? What can I explore?
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So that is it for today's show. We would love for you to, to engage a little bit. If you want to tell us, what gift, that you're ready to embrace, we'd love to hear from you. You can find out more about Angelica at angelicadelcarmen.com. I know she's going to be starting up her podcast again soon, so you might want to be on the lookout for that. I am looking forward to to hearing her new podcast and her spirituality magazine that's going to be coming soon as well. She's doing some stuff. She's starting to express her gifts as well in a new ways. So I'm so excited for her. And you can also check out my website at livingnaturallyforlife.com. I have a bunch of free resources there, including I have a free resource about discovering your purpose and passion, which would go really great with the discussion we had today if you want to look for that. And yeah, so that is it for today's show. I hope you guys will tune in again. Feel free to subscribe, like and comment on the show. We hope you come back again and maybe even interact with us a little bit. But that is it for today. And until next time, remember, wellness isn't a destination, it's your daily journey. Bye for now.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Living Naturally for Life and angelicadelcarmen.com. Comment, like, subscribe.